Persona 5 has some pretty messed up villains. I mean, most of them are straight up evil and cannot be redeemed in any way. Even though personally, I wish we learned more on them, similar to the videotapes in Maruki's palace. But most of them do a pretty effective jobs as villain of their respective arcs, so it's not that big of a deal honestly. I'm not sure if I'm gonna discuss who's the most evil villain or who's the worst one per se. I think it's better for me to do both because the topic is going to be much more interesting and I have a lot to say on some characters that could be good or bad, so having both ideas as the main topic or main talking point is probably the best one honestly. I'm not going to talk about Sai, Akechi, Maruki and Yaldabaoth because they're much more complicated and deep than just calling them villains. Sai is just heavily misguided in her idea of justice and she's also been used as a pawn for the SI director during the whole game. Akechi is more of a rival to Joker more than a villain for most of the game, and I already made a whole video on Maruki and Yaldabaoth, so there is no point for me to go deeper on them because I already have all my ideas on the vid. But enough with the yapping, let's just get into it. For me, even after playing the game 3 or 4 times, Kamoshida still stands out as the best villain in Persona 5. The game does such a great job making you hate him from the start. Unlike so many other villains, Kamoshida's victims are people that you personally know and that you care about. Ryuji, An, Shio, and Mishima. Kamoshida as a character is introduced as this Olympic gold medal winner who's here to bring prestige to Shujin Academy. It's for that reason that he feels like he can do basically anything he wants, because he knows the school will protect him no matter what happened, which is so messed up the more you think about it. Even after Shio tried to off herself, the school did not give a damn and was still gonna keep him. It's their values over the values and the lives of the student, which is sad. Like wow, it's actually kinda sad. It's never stated in game what Kamoshida did to Shio, but with context clues and with this scene in his palace, I think it's pretty obvious that he forced himself onto her. I'm not gonna say the word for obvious reason. I'm not trying to get sniped by YouTube, but you know what I mean, or y'all know what I mean. The worst thing about Kamoshida as a person is that he really does not care about anything he does to the other people, even after forcing himself onto Shiho, even after breaking Ryoji's leg and practically ruining his life, even after constantly sexually harassing An and the female players or volleyball team players. He really did not give a damn, which shows us how messed up of a person he is. To me, the scariest thing about the whole Kamoshida incident is that it easily could have taken place in this world, and it definitely exists. It's very common for people in power abusing their influence on younger people for their own benefits and sexual advances from time to time. With all this build up the game makes, Kamoshida's change of heart feels like the most rewarding one in the game. You finally take down the one person who ruined the life of countless people for selfish gains, and it feels so great. It feels like the first major climax of the game, and it hits hard. Seeing him cry after all the nonsense he put all the people through and after what happened is just so satisfying to see. That first part of the story is damn near flawless. It's great. If Kamoshida was ever taken to court, he should be charged with sexual harassment, being a predator, physically and mentally abusing minors, aggravated assault on Ryuji or a minor if you want to say so, demanding sexual advances from minors, and almost leading someone to off themselves. I'm personally giving him life in prison because he deserves no chance in my book, and there is no way someone like him, he is twisted from the roots and has to be cut off or isolated or something, but he is going to jail for life. Marami as a character or as a villain is actually really interesting because at first I thought he was only guilty of plagiarism and stealing his student ideas, which is still bad, don't get me wrong, but compared to Kamoshida, it's not that deep. But with my third playthrough fresh on my mind and more context about him, he is probably just as bad as the first one. I forgot the fact that he pushed one of his students to off themselves and then cover it up like he never existed. He is also guilty of the death of Yusuke's mother because he was present when she got a seizure but decided to do nothing at all that for him to get a Sayuri. Another reason why I think Marami works so well as a villain is because we actually spent time with him and witnessed his relationship with Yusuke. With his connection with Yusuke being so strong, you can understand why Yusuke defends him so much, That man is practically his father figure, so of course he's gonna be in denial of all those accusations leveled against him. But it turns out he's been gaslit his whole life, and Marami is really just a selfish prick who steals from his student. I don't think Marami is a better villain than Kamoshida because the latter leaves you with much more impact. It's going to be very hard to replicate the tension of the first arc, but as a follow-up villain, I think he works pretty well. That whole story arc is overhated. Of course, it's not perfect, but I think Yusuke introduction, Marami as a villain, the palace itself, the conclusion, everything is great. The only redeeming thing about Marami is that deep down, he really does care about Yusuke, but it's not enough to save him because he ruined the lives of countless people, and affection for one person is not enough to counteract all the nonsense and evil he did. If Marami was ever taken to court for his crimes, he should be charged with negligent homicide, mental abuse on his students, and leading someone to off themselves. I'm also giving him life in prison because he ruined the life of so many people, so for me, there is no way for him to be redeemed in any way. He is done for. Kamoshida is so weird to me because when it comes to being the most evil, the most messed up villain, he is at the top of the list alongside Shido. He is a mafia boss, you cannot get worse than that. But when it comes to being an actual character that drives the plot and the other main characters, he just sucks, man. It's actually kinda sad how bad he is as a main antagonist. The game really drops the ball with him having no prior connection to Makoto at that point. It could have been really interesting to see that he was one of the people who are responsible for the death of Makoto's father, and it would have been really cool to see how the story turns out. The other thing that makes him such a bad villain is that he is barely on screen. With Kamoshida and Marami, we spend a lot of time with them and understand why we hate them so much. But with Kamoshida, he gets 2 scenes in his own arc. His shadow self has more presence than his real self. That actually could have been a pretty cool idea to explore because your shadow is a part of you, but that concept goes nowhere and he's just a bland character, lame character. He feels like more like an excuse for the plot to have another palace than an actual character. Everything I just said kinda pissed me off because except Kamoshida himself, that whole part of the game is so damn great. His palace is my second favorite in the game. The music that plays in it is so hard and incredible. His boss fight is also extremely fun. It's not that hard or anything, but I just really like it. And of course, the MVP of the whole arc was Makoto Nijima. Everything about her character was great, and especially that awakening scene is just a cherry on the top on such a great character. They were able to make Makoto such a compelling character, but decided to drop the ball with Kamoshida as an antagonist, which kinda sucks, man. Like, it's actually so sad because there was so much potential for it. A mafia boss as a main villain could have been really cool, but he's just the most lame, boring character ever. If Kamoshida was taken to court for his crimes, he should be charged with drug dealing, money laundering, sex trafficking, extortion, endangering minors, and just being a terrible character. And of course, he's getting life in prison. This should be a surprise to no one. He is like the worst, he's like the most evil character in the game, but just below Shido, so of course, his charges are gonna be crazy. But anyways, on to the next one. Okumura for me is just the most boring character in the game. There is nothing about him that stands out. I wish the game spent most of the time or more time fleshing out his relationship with Haru because he became more and more business oriented at the cost of neglecting his own daughter. He was ready to sell out Haru for more power, for more influence in general. This could have been pretty interesting for the game to follow, but we got the most basic, mediocre villain in the game. I think it's so stupid for the game to focus on Morgana and his annoying antics instead of fleshing out Haru and her father's relationship. She really got let down by the plot because her social link is actually really dope, like actually really good stuff. This story link could have easily been one of the best ones in the game because the idea of someone using his power to mission his employees is so common in these days. So actually, I don't know how they fumble so hard. The concept is actually so interesting, but the execution is not good at all. I could argue this is the worst arc in the whole franchise. It is that bad. But anyways, funnily enough, the best thing about this part of the game is the palace itself. I know it's the worst one, especially with the music that plays. It makes my ears bleed. But it's still a good palace, like a solid 6 out of 10, but compared to the other one, it still falls flat. There's a reason why many people, including myself, are not very fond of it, especially that section in the factory line, and the boss fight, damn, we had it rough. It was not that good. If Okumura was taken to court, he could actually find a way to get out because he has so much money and influence that he could probably drop the charges, but I'm not a lawyer, don't quote me on that. But let's say he's still taken to court, he should be charged with poor treatment of employees, neglect of minor, and I honestly don't know what to say because he has so little screen time that I actually don't care enough to go deeper, so I guess life in prison. But he's probably gonna get something way lesser because of his influence and anything else. But anyways, Shido as the final major villain in the game is just fine to me, not good, not bad, just serviceable. He does a good enough job for the plot so it doesn't feel stale, I guess. I wish all those scenes with the SI director was just Shido himself instead of what we got. I can guarantee you that we don't need the SI director to be used as exposition. Shido himself would have been so much better. Even though I think he's kind of a bland villain, he's still the reason why many events in the game take place. Both Marami and Kamoshida work for him, and I'm pretty sure he told Akechi to kill Okumura and Futaba's mother, and of course he is the reason why Joker has that criminal case on him, so he definitely has influence. That's why I think he's not a bad villain. He solves the plot well and does a good enough job to push it. But when it comes to being the most evil, he is by far at the top of the list. Sexual assault, conspiracies against competitors, endangering minors, child neglect, mass murder, every single charge that exists, I'm sure Shido is guilty of it. So for this one, I think he deserves the death penalty. He ruined the life of so many people, so to me, or for everyone else, he doesn't deserve a second chance or anything. Lastly, I'm not going to go too deep into this one because I have a whole different video on them, but the general public are the most evil force or people in Persona 5 is because of the neglect of the current societal problems that the palace rulers are able to get away with their acts. They allow those people in power to get away with their crimes because it personally doesn't affect them. They don't feel compelled enough to speak up and stand up for others, so of course the people with twisted desires will feel untouchable if the masses themselves don't care. They display a level of hypocrisy that makes them the most dangerous force in the game. Every major party in the game, be it the Phantom Thief, Shido, Kamoshida, and basically all the villains, need the approval of the masses if they want to be recognized and enact change. And to make it even worse, Yaldabaoth is created from their desire to be free from thinking, free from work, enslaved by the lack of care to change the status quo. But that's all I gotta say for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to do all the YouTube stuff. I actually had the script written down for like 2 months, but I never did it because the summer was not the time for me to make vids, but finally recorded it and I actually kinda like it. But thank you for watching and stay safe.